All right, let's just get right into it. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack a pretty fascinating digital product experiment. I really wanted to know the honest truth about a side hustle that seemed to just blow up overnight, selling AI prompts. I kept seeing the hype, so I decided to actually run a first-person experiment. I wanted to see if real people would pull out their credit cards to buy text instructions for AI. So today, I'm documenting the completely realistic process, the totally surprising roadblocks I hit, and the honest results.
Because, really, this is the core question that hooked me, and it's probably what hooked you too. Can you actually make money selling text? And just to be clear, we aren't talking about writing a sweeping novel or coding some complex software. We're literally talking about selling a few sentences, maybe a paragraph, designed to tell an AI what to do. So, is all the hype around this just an internet myth? Or is it actually a legitimate, scalable digital product business?
$6.5 trillion. That's trillion with a T. According to industry projections we looked at, that is the estimated value of the global prompt engineering market by the year 2034. It's just an absolutely staggering number, right? And the crazy part is, the barrier to entry is virtually zero. You don't need to know a single line of code, you just need a web browser and some specific expertise. So, with that massive pie just sitting there, I definitely wanted my slice. But as I quickly learned, you can't just throw any old text on the internet and expect it to sell.
So that brings us to Act 1, market research, figuring out what actually sells.
Before building a single product, I really had to figure out what people are actively paying for right now. And looking at real sales data from PromptBase, there's a super clear winner. B2B workflow automation heavily outsells generic novelty art generators. The top tier, those are meta prompt generators, prompts that literally build other prompts, and they're selling for around $13 a pop. Businesses aren't buying party tricks, They're buying a return on investment. They want to replace expensive consultants, save hours of coding time, or generate direct ad revenue.
Moving right along to Act 2, building the product, the actual creation process.
To create these, I definitely couldn't just wing it. I adopted Anthropic's golden rule for prompting, which is treat the AI like a brilliant but incredibly literal-minded new employee on their very first day at the job. For example, a terrible prompt is something vague like, write about marketing trends. If you do that, the AI will just default to this safe, super boring encyclopedia speak. But a good prompt, it sounds more like, analyze 3 B2B SaaS marketing trends from the past 6 months, give company examples, write a 400-word board brief. See the difference? Every single constraint you add is a decision the AI no longer gets to dodge. That highly constrained, specific text is exactly the difference between something totally useless and a premium product a buyer will happily pay for.
Ultimately, you are packaging structured expertise. You've got to follow these 4 critical steps. Be specific, be outcome-driven, be audience-specific, and above all else, solve real problems. Because here's the secret. You aren't just selling a string of text. You are selling the testing and iteration you did so the buyer doesn't have to. You're selling time. Buyers are paying to completely bypass that frustrating trial and error phase so they can immediately solve a real pain point, like, say, replacing a graphic designer for a small e-commerce store's packaging.
All right, Act 3, going to market. Let's talk pricing and platforms.
Having a great product is honestly only half the battle. You need a rock-solid pricing strategy. Digital products are notoriously underpriced because creators tend to think, well, it's just a file, but you have to price against the outcome you're providing. Utilizing a tiered model is pretty brilliant here. You use a single, cheap prompt as a loss leader. But your core product? That's your professional pack, sitting around $49. When you place that right next to a $99 library or a monthly subscription, that middle option suddenly feels like a fantastic deal to the buyer.
But then comes the platform choice. And wow, the fees are a massive wake-up call. AI prompt marketplaces are great because they give you a built-in audience, but they take a really hefty cut, usually around 30%. Compare that to selling direct through a platform like Dodo Payments. Acting as your own merchant of record only costs you about 4% per transaction. So, marketplaces are fantastic to validate your product and get some initial eyeballs on it, but making that leap to direct sales is absolutely where you protect your margins.
Which brings us to Act 4, the legal roadblock, the totally unexpected copyright risks.
Just as I was setting all of this up, I hit a massive wall, like a severe legal gray area that you simply cannot ignore. I found this really critical warning from the IP attorneys at Martinson IP. AI doesn't just copy and paste, it creates statistical maps of data. But if it has ingested highly distinctive, copyrighted work, it can literally regurgitate that protected expression. And if your prompt triggers that regurgitation, well, you have a major problem on your hands.
And here is the truly terrifying part for anyone selling or even buying prompts. You can face strict liability for copyright infringement even if it's a total accident. Under US law, infringement doesn't actually require intent. So, whether the AI paraphrases protected text, spits out licensed code snippets, or generates an image that closely imitates a living artist's unique style, if you monetize that output, you can be sued for pirating something you didn't even write. You might not even own the copyright to the AI generation, but you are still legally on the hook for publishing it. Crazy, right?
Okay, Act 5, the reveal. Let's look at the actual revenue potential.
So, after all that building, testing, and mild legal panic, did the money actually roll in? Well, here is the final, unvarnished economic truth I discovered. If you just toss a few prompts on a marketplace, you might make $100 to $500 a month. It's a nice little side hustle for sure. But the real money, that $2,000 to $15,000 a month range, is exclusively made by creators who sell direct. They build an email list of engaged buyers and then transition those buyers into a monthly subscription model, providing ongoing updates as the AI models themselves evolve.
Finally, Act 6, lessons and final verdict, the massive industry shift.
Running this whole experiment totally opened my eyes to a huge shift happening right now. The reality is, the basic trial and error prompt crafting we used to know, it essentially died in 2025. It's been completely replaced by what experts are calling AI orchestration. The future isn't about writing a single clever question for ChatGPT anymore. It's about designing prompts that generate other prompts, systems that critique their own outputs, and recursive chains that integrate seamlessly into a company's existing enterprise infrastructure.
The generalist prompt engineer is practically extinct today. If you want to succeed now, you have to be highly specialized. You need to be a conversational AI architect or maybe a retrieval augmented generation specialist who manages vector databases. You really have to know how to build resilient systems that can handle weird edge cases without breaking a sweat.
So, if I had to restart this entire experiment today, here are my honest takeaways on what I'd change. First off, I'd stop selling generic text completely. Done. I would start treating prompts as literal code that requires strict governance, versioning, and rigorous testing. I'd optimize for token economics, because a bloated prompt costs a business real, actual money at scale. And I'd focus heavily on adversarial robustness, which basically means building airtight security into the prompt to prevent users from jailbreaking the system.
Selling AI prompts online absolutely can make you money, but the game has completely leveled up. It is no longer a simple creative writing exercise, it's a deep technical discipline now. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. As this entire field moves away from basic text generation and into complex multimodal system architecture, do you have the specialized expertise to compete in an environment where AI orchestration is the ultimate business differentiator? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.